Guadalcanal, November 1942. A Marine corporal crouches in his foxhole as Japanese infantry probe the American lines in the pre-dawn darkness. He reaches for a grenade, his fingers find the pull ring, but the pin won't budge. Mud has caked into the mechanism during 3 days of monsoon rain. He tries another grenade, same problem. The enemy is 20 meters away now, moving through the jungle undergrowth. 15 meters, he can hear their equipment rattling. 10 meters, he abandons the grenades and brings up his rifle, but in the confined space of the foxhole, the weapon is unwieldy. A Japanese soldier appears at the lip of the position. The Marine drops his rifle and his hand closes around something small, clipped to his dog tag chain. 1 inch of folded steel. He flicks it open with his thumb. The Japanese soldier lunges forward with his bayonet. The Marine drives the tiny blade upward, under the enemy's chin, then rips it across the throat. The soldier collapses into the foxhole. The corporal kills 2 more men in the next 30 seconds with the same tool before dawn breaks and the attack falters. When the position is secured at first light, his squadmates find him covered in blood, still gripping the small folding opener, its cutting edge darkened with gore. This scene repeats itself dozens of times across the Pacific Islands. Patrol reports document close combat engagements won not with firearms or explosives, but with an implement weighing less than 10 grams. Official after-action assessments note with bewilderment that more Japanese soldiers are being killed with can openers than with issued fighting knives. The reports pile up at Marine Corps headquarters in Washington. A pattern emerges that defies conventional military logic. The deadliest weapon many infantrymen carry isn't forged in an armory. It costs 35 cents to produce. And it was designed by a desk clerk who never saw combat. The problem facing American forces in the Pacific theater goes beyond the tactical challenges of island warfare. Every Marine, every soldier, every sailor requires roughly 2,000 calories daily to maintain combat effectiveness in tropical heat. The solution is tinned rations, millions upon millions of sealed cans containing everything from meat and vegetables to fruit cocktail and cheese. But opening these cans in combat conditions proves extraordinarily difficult. The standard issue P-51 can opener, adopted in the 1930s, is a clumsy stamped steel device requiring 2 hands to operate. Worse, it produces jagged, dangerous edges and frequently breaks under field use. A Marine Corps report from September 1942 documents the scale of the problem. In one regiment, nearly 40% of P-51 openers are non-functional within 3 weeks of landing on Guadalcanal. Soldiers resort to bayonets, knives, even rifle fire to open their rations. Lieutenant Colonel James Henderson writes in his field dispatch, "Our men are spending as much time fighting with their food as fighting the Japanese. The current opener is wholly inadequate for combat operations. Men are cutting their hands. Equipment is being damaged. Time is being wasted when time means lives." The pattern is undeniable at the War Department. General Levin Campbell, Chief of Ordnance, reviews the reports in early 1943. Tests are conducted at Aberdeen Proving Ground. Soldiers attempt to open regulation cans with the P-51 under simulated combat stress, wearing gloves in darkness, with wet hands, whilst under time pressure. The failure rate exceeds 50%. The conclusion is clear and urgent. The military needs a can opener that requires only 1 hand to operate, functions reliably in any environment, remains permanently attached to the soldier, weighs almost nothing, costs almost nothing, and is virtually indestructible. The specifications seem impossible to meet. John C. Morrissey doesn't look like he's about to solve one of the US military's most pressing logistics problems. Born in 1909 to a working-class family in Connecticut, Morrissey grows up watching his father repair machinery in a small workshop behind their house. By age 12, he's making simple tools from scrap metal. By 15, he's designing and fabricating custom implements for neighbors. He takes a job at the Subsistence Research Laboratory in Chicago in 1932, hired as a junior administrative clerk during the depths of the Depression. The laboratory develops field rations and combat food systems for the Army. Morrissey files papers and maintains records, but he spends his lunch hours in the machine shop, studying the equipment, asking questions, sketching ideas in notebooks. Whilst senior engineers focus on improving the containers themselves, making cans lighter and more stackable, Morrissy sees a different problem. The cans are fine, the openers are rubbish. In his notebooks from 1937, he sketches dozens of designs for folding blade mechanisms. His colleagues think he's wasting his time on an unsolvable problem. The engineering consensus holds that a truly effective field can opener must sacrifice either size or functionality. You can make it small or you can make it work, but you cannot make it both. Morrissy disagrees. He understands that the future belongs to simplicity married to elegance. By 1942, whilst others are refining incrementally better versions of the clumsy P-51, Morrissy has developed a working prototype based on a revolutionary principle. The cutting edge doesn't need to pierce the can, it needs to lever against it. The innovation seems almost absurdly simple once demonstrated, but it represents a fundamental rethinking of how metal cuts metal. Traditional can openers work by punching through the lid, then sawing around the circumference. Morrissy's design uses a hinged cutting blade that pivots on a central point, allowing the user to rock the blade back and forth whilst simultaneously applying downward pressure. The blade doesn't cut so much as it punches and tears in a controlled sequence. Each rocking motion advances the cut approximately 3 millimeters. The entire mechanism measures just 38 millimeters long when folded, hence the designation P38. The design becomes the foundation for every compact folding can opener developed subsequently. Morrissy partners with the JW Speaker Corporation in Milwaukee to meet military specifications. The challenges are considerable. The opener must function reliably after thousands of uses. It must be simple enough that even an exhausted, frightened soldier can operate it in complete darkness. It must work in temperatures from minus 30 degrees Celsius to plus 50. It must resist corrosion from salt water, resist fouling from mud and sand, and survive being dropped, stepped on, and subjected to the general abuse of military life. The solution is high-carbon steel, hardened and tempered to precise specifications. The blade maintains its edge through hundreds of cans. The folding mechanism uses a rivet joint with deliberately loose tolerances, allowing grit to pass through rather than jamming the action. The entire assembly is then coated in a thin layer of protective oil and stamped with a simple manufacturer's mark. No packaging, no instructions. The tool is self-evident in its operation. The Army Quartermaster Corps begins testing in March 1943. 3 manufacturers submit designs: the Speaker Corporation with Morrissy's P38, the Continental Can Company with an improved P51 variant, and the Crown Cork and Seal Company with an entirely different rotary mechanism. The tests are merciless. Each design must open 100 cans consecutively without failure. Then the openers are subjected to environmental torture, frozen solid, heated to the point where the metal nearly glows, submerged in salt water, buried in beach sand, and required to function immediately upon retrieval. The Army wants to know what happens when everything goes wrong. The final torture test takes place on the 15th of April 1943. Morrissy personally supervises. Each opener must process 500 cans over a 72-hour period under field conditions. Soldiers operate the tools whilst wearing heavy gloves in simulated darkness whilst wet. Observers from the Quartermaster Corps watch for any malfunction: blade failures, rivet separations, loss of edge retention, inability to penetrate the can lid. The Continental design manages 73 cans before the blade snaps. The crown mechanism jams irreparably after 147 cans when sand enters the rotary assembly. The P38 opens all 500 cans. The observers note no measurable degradation in performance. Nothing. The decision is unanimous. On 8th June 1943, the P38 receives official adoption under designation Opener, Can, Hand, Folding, Type 1. The Army, Navy, Marine Corps, and Coast Guard all place immediate orders. The production cost is established at 35 cents per unit. Each opener weighs just under 10 grams. Dimensions: 38 millimeters long, 8 millimeters wide, 2 millimeters thick when folded. The first combat validation doesn't come in a firefight or an assault on an enemy position. It comes in a drainage ditch outside Carentan, France, on 12 June 1944. Private First Class Robert Bowen, 101st Airborne Division, is separated from his unit after the D-Day jump. He's been moving through the Norman countryside for 36 hours, avoiding German patrols, trying to link up with American forces. He's exhausted, hungry, and down to his last magazine of rifle ammunition. In his musette bag he carries 4 tins of sea rations he's been saving. He finds cover in an irrigation ditch and decides to risk opening a tin of meat and beans. He pulls the P-38 from his dog tag chain and begins working it around the lid. The distinctive clicking rhythm of the opener at work carries in the still morning air. A German soldier, also separated from his unit, hears the sound and investigates. He appears at the edge of the ditch whilst Bowen is mid-bite, the half-opened can in one hand. Bowen drops the can and reaches for his rifle, but the German is faster, his Mauser already aimed. Bowen throws himself sideways as the shot cracks past his head. He rolls and comes up inside the German's reach. His hand still grips the P-38, its blade extended. He drives it into the German's throat just below the jaw hinge, then rips it forward through the carotid artery. The German drops. Bowen finishes opening his ration tin, eats quickly, and continues moving. He reaches American lines that evening and reports the contact. His platoon sergeant notices the blood on Bowen's dog tag chain and asks what happened. Bowen shows him the P-38, its blade still darkened. Word spreads through the company, then the battalion. By the end of June, a disturbing number of after-action reports mention close combat engagements resolved with the tiny opener. The pattern is impossible to ignore. The Pacific Theatre tells the same story on a larger scale. Marine Corps intelligence analyses from late 1944 reveal something unprecedented. In night fighting and close-quarters jungle combat, more Japanese soldiers are being killed with P-38 openers than with the issued Ka-bar fighting knife. The statistics seem impossible, but the evidence is irrefutable. Japanese bodies are found with distinctive narrow puncture wounds to the throat, eyes, and subclavian arteries. Forensic analysis identifies the wound patterns as consistent with the P-38's pointed tip and narrow blade. Combat interviews reveal the reason. The P-38 is always accessible, clipped to dog tag chains or fastened to helmet webbing. It's light enough that soldiers forget they're carrying it, unlike the heavy Ka-bar knife that many troops leave behind when moving fast. And in the desperate mud-soaked grappling that characterizes Pacific Island combat, the tiny opener proves devastatingly effective. Captain James McBride, a Marine Rifle Company commander on Peleliu, writes in his official report, "The men have discovered that the P-38, whilst designed to open tins, makes an excellent last-ditch weapon. Its small size allows concealment even when searched. Its blade, though short, is sharp enough to penetrate to vital areas. And because every man carries one, every man has a weapon even when disarmed of everything else." By early 1945, the Japanese are aware of the pattern. Captured documents include warnings to infantry about the American small blade weapon and instructions to search for it specifically when taking prisoners. They call it the pocket tanto, mistakenly believing it to be a purpose-designed fighting knife rather than a can opener pressed into lethal service. The Second World War sees the P-38 become as ubiquitous as the helmet and the rifle. Every soldier, sailor, airman, and marine receives one as part of their basic issue. Officers carry them, tank crews keep them clipped to their headsets, pilots wear them on their dog tag chains, paratroopers attach them to their jump harnesses. The demand is staggering. Speaker Corporation cannot possibly meet the requirement alone. The Army contracts with manufacturers across the industrial spectrum. The Washburn Company, normally producing barbed wire and fence staples, the Gem Manufacturing Company, makers of safety pins and paper clips, even the International Business Machines Corporation, better known for typewriters and calculating machines. Each manufacturer produces millions of units. The Gem Company alone stamps out 14 million P-38s between June 1943 and September 1945. The design proves so elegant that wartime simplification measures are entirely unnecessary. There's nothing to simplify. No modifications are made to speed production because the opener is already as simple as a folded piece of steel can be. The core design remains unchanged from Morrisy's original 1942 prototype through the end of the war. It works in the frozen forests of the Ardennes. It works in the burning deserts of North Africa. It works in the steaming jungles of Burma. It works in the Arctic wastes of the Aleutians. It works. Even the Germans begin using captured P-38s, preferring them to their own bulkier Bundeswehr-issue openers. Japanese soldiers who find them on American dead keep them as prized souvenirs. By August 1945, when production for the war effort ceases, more than 43 million P-38 openers have been manufactured. The pattern continues through every subsequent American conflict. Korea sees the P-38 still clipped to every soldier's dog tag chain, still opening rations in frozen trenches, and still serving as an emergency weapon in close combat. Vietnam proves the design's worth again in an entirely different environment. Tunnel rats carry them into the Cu Chi complex because the opener adds no weight and takes no space, but provides a cutting edge when crawling through pitch-black passages. Armored vehicle crews in both conflicts prefer the P-38 to larger knives because it doesn't snag on equipment or interfere with movement in confined spaces. The Gulf War in 1991 should mark the P-38's obsolescence. The military has transitioned to MRE rations in flexible pouches, theoretically eliminating the need for can openers entirely. Yet the P-38 remains in production. Special operations forces in particular refuse to abandon it. Delta Force operators, Navy SEALs, Marine Force reconnaissance and Army Rangers all maintain the tiny opener in their kit. The reasoning is simple and professional. Stopping power matters less than certainty. Reliability beats sophistication. The P-38 has proven, across 5 decades of continuous use, that it works. Afghanistan and Iraq see the same pattern repeated once more. Photographs from Kandahar and Fallujah show senior non-commissioned officers and field-grade officers still wearing the distinctive folded steel implement on their dog tag chains. A widely circulated image from 2007 depicts a Marine Expeditionary Unit commander, a full colonel, with a P-38 visible on his body armor. When asked why he carries an obsolete can opener, he responds, "Because in 30 years of service it's never failed to do exactly what I needed it to do." By 2010, the P-38 has been in continuous U.S. military service for 67 years. It has served through the Second World War, Korea, Vietnam, the Gulf War, Somalia, Bosnia, Afghanistan, and Iraq. It has engaged every enemy the United States has fought since 1943. Contracts are awarded to manufacturing firms as recently as 2018 for additional production runs. The design remains exactly as Morrissey conceived it in 1942. The manufacturing legacy extends far beyond military procurement. The P-38 patent expires in 1962, placing the design in the public domain. Anyone can manufacture one. Dozens of companies across the world begin production. The Shelby Company in Tennessee produces millions for commercial sale. European manufacturers create variants with minor modifications to blade shape or rivet design, but the fundamental mechanism remains unchanged. In 2015, the state of Connecticut designates the P-38 as an official state symbol, recognizing Morrisy's contribution. His grave in Cedar Hill Cemetery bears a small bronze plaque noting his achievement. Civilians can purchase a functionally identical P-38 today from outdoor suppliers, military surplus dealers, and even general retailers. The price ranges from 50 cents to $3 depending on manufacturer and finish quality. Think about that for a moment. You can buy right now a tool designed more than 80 years ago and discover it performs its function better than products designed last year. The fact that no one has meaningfully improved upon Morrisy's design in 8 decades speaks volumes. Official military procurement totals through 2020 exceed 60 million units. Commercial production likely doubles that figure. Conservative estimates place total P-38 production somewhere north of 150 million openers. Why does it endure? The answer lies in function married to reliability, married to elegant simplicity. Morrissy understood a fundamental principle in 1942 that remains true in the 21st century. Complexity is the enemy of reliability. The P-38 operates on the most basic mechanical principles: a lever pivoting on a fulcrum, a hardened edge applying force to a weaker material. There's no spring to fatigue, no mechanism to jam, no assembly to come apart under stress. The operating system's simplicity is its immortality. When you fold open the blade, you create a lever with a 3-to-1 mechanical advantage. The hardened cutting edge concentrates force on a tiny contact point. The curved shape of the blade allows the rocking motion that advances the cut. The loose rivet joint provides exactly enough friction to hold the blade in position, but not so much that grit can jam the mechanism. The generous tolerances allow the opener to function when caked with mud, crusted with salt, or fouled with sand. The high-carbon steel holds an edge through hundreds of uses. When the edge finally dulls, it can be resharpened with nothing more sophisticated than a rock. The entire design embodies the principle that less is more. Ammunition comparisons prove instructive. Modern soldiers carry sidearms chambered in 9mm parabellum or .45 ACP, both effective cartridges with decades of proven performance. But consider the P-38's ballistics. The blade provides approximately 30mm of cutting edge. Applied to the human throat, 30mm is sufficient to sever both carotid arteries and the trachea. Applied to the eye socket, 30mm reaches the brain. The force required is minimal, perhaps 5 kilograms of pressure, well within the capability of even an exhausted soldier. The accuracy is perfect at contact distance. The magazine capacity is unlimited because the weapon never runs out. The reliability exceeds any firearm ever manufactured because there are no moving parts to fail. Modern weapons offer advantages in capacity and standoff distance, certainly. The standard issue M17 pistol carries 17 rounds and can engage targets accurately at 25 meters. But when absolute reliability is required, when failure means death, many professional soldiers still choose to carry the 8-decade-old opener. The proof lies not in theoretical arguments, but in actual use. After 80 years and hundreds of millions of units deployed in every climate and environment on Earth, the P-38 has proven one thing beyond any doubt: it works. Some weapons are revolutionary in their innovation, some are reliable in their function, some are elegant in their simplicity. The P-38 is all three. It was supposed to cost 35 cents and last perhaps 6 months of field use before requiring replacement. Instead, it became immortal. Individual P-38 openers have remained in continuous service for 70 years, passed from father to son, from sergeant to private, acquiring the patina of constant use, but